Welcome to the Association 100 podcast. The A100 podcast is an extension of our Association 100 bi-monthly newsletter that focuses on best practices, top trends, helpful ideas, and smart strategies and tactics that work in the world of associations. The podcast will feature meaningful conversations with association professionals across the country, taking a deeper dive into trending topics, offering insights that both inform and inspire.
Welcome back to the A100 podcast. I'm Colin Gallagher, and I'm joined by my co-host, Megan Henning. Today, we're talking all things education, and we're very excited to welcome our guest, Dr. Amanda Cecil. Amanda is a professor at Indiana University, and she also works at associations to create dynamic and educational programming, which is how Megan and I came to know Amanda over the years, as we've had the good fortune of getting to work with her very closely for many years. So thanks so much for joining us today, Amanda.
Thanks, Colleen. Thanks so much for inviting me.
Amanda, we're so excited to have this conversation with you today. Tell us about your role at Indiana University and how you help associations with their education programs.
Sure. So I've been at Indiana University, it's kind of hard to even say, 20 years now. I started in 2002, and I've been on the faculty in the Department of Tourism, Events, and Sport Management during this time. So much has changed in higher ed over the 20-year span. But part of my role as an active faculty member is to find partners, whether that's in the professional world or in the community, and find ways to deliver great education and content. Again, I think that's a major role of a faculty member, is to find those unique ways to share, whether it's content, resources, research, etc. But those who really are actively involved in that kind of collaboration tend to, again, be so passionate about what they do and also have a great network to share with students.
I think that's so great. And I remember when we worked together thinking, it was such a great idea that an association would hire, a PhD to really come in and help and not just put together some education on their own. So you've been working with associations for over a decade. What do you like most about assisting associations with their education programs? And what do you think the biggest challenges for associations?
Yeah, so the first one, I think there's a lot of magic when you put together someone who spends their day thinking about good learning practice and pedagogy and assessment with a subject matter expert, somebody that's in it day to day, understands the challenges of that profession. When you merge those two worlds together, you can really put together powerful programming. And that's what I have loved about partnering with associations, is I'm not in the day-to-day throes of being in meetings or being in travel or being on the sports side anymore. I'm a full-time academic. But would I get to work with a big brain with someone who does it day to day, and we can put our two skill sets together, you really can give powerful programming to your membership. And so that's what I've most enjoyed about partnering with an association staff who really gets the issues and what their members need. And then I hope to bring in expertise more in curricular design, good learning practice, et cetera. And then again, merging those two essentially, hopefully, produces a really great outcome.
That's great.
Yeah, I love that power of bringing in the two areas of expertise, because it really gets you the whole package.
And if you can collaborate, I think really the interesting part is just being open to collaborating and being open to really different types of partnerships. A lot of people are really, weren't open necessarily to bring me in as an academic. It took, a leader who really had a vision and is used to working with someone who has a very different mindset. And I have a very different mindset than most in the association. Someone took a chance on me to do that. And like I said, it's been so rewarding for me over the years to be able to engage that way.
Kind of shifting gears, education is obviously a hot topic for all levels right now. So whether it's student loan forgiveness, do you still need a 4-year college degree? There's a million topics in the news. But for associations, it's central to a lot of their offerings, sometimes even a revenue generator. So when you're talking continuing education in general, what are some of the top trends you're seeing for continuing education, adult education, that type of stuff?
Yeah, for me, I would say in higher education and both association education and training, it really now is ROI. What is the return on investment for me to pay for this, not only in money, but in time? What is the outcome for this going to be? There's a lot of lifetime learners. I'm a lifetime learner. I still like to go to different programs or different ways to even better myself over my career. But you have to clearly articulate what someone is going to get from this education program and how that translates into how that's going to affect their career. And, again, I think it's even more critical now that, and I know in higher ed, we're talking about it every day. People are making difficult choices. Education, higher ed is expensive, and it's an investment. And I'm a college mom right now. I'm paying college tuition. I understand that, and I want to understand where this is going to land us as a family in 4 years. So I think making sure that messaging is really tight around this. You're going into this education program, and this is what you will gain by this knowledge post program, whether that's in a long-term certificate program with an association, or whether that's in a 4-year degree, master's degree, PhD, advanced degree, et cetera. So that's really what we're focusing on in higher ed. And I would say the same for associations.
That makes so much sense on the association front. And I don't think for associations that's unique to education. I feel like they have to answer that ROI question right now for everything they're offering.
No question. We all do.
Yeah. So when associations are creating an offering or evaluating the offerings, what are the top things that they should be thinking about?
Yeah. So, I always start with asking the question, what do our members really need? I mean, do our members really need this? Is the education timely? Is it relevant? Does it matter? Or is this really just kind of a fluffy offering that we're, trying to offer to the members? I continually will ask for needs assessment data, and again, make sure we're hitting the target with this. Does this program really speak to the times and the relevancy? Are we really aware of what we need to be offering as an association at this point in time? So I think, again, in my 20 years in higher ed and being an association member, that's really changed. The formats have changed. The way they're delivering content has changed. Community building has changed. So you have to evolve with the time and with what your members really, really need in order to be successful in the education space.
Yeah. It sounds to me too that, that you're encouraging people to sort of reevaluate what they're doing. For sure. And maybe doing it on a product by product basis or a course by course basis, because, is it evolving so quickly that, before associations might be reevaluating their programs every year, but should they be maybe evaluating their programs course by course?
Absolutely. And hopefully, like I said, there's a strategy tied to the whole educational program, but looking at those individual courses, maybe something just isn't relevant. The membership just doesn't need it anymore. It needs to phase out. And there is something that bubbles up that's much more important that needs to be offered and developed. So again, having somebody in that education role at associations that understands the strategy, that's continually looking at data, continually talking to members, continually looking at industry trends is critical. If you're down in the weeds all the time, you're going to miss the target. You're going to either not fulfill a gap that really needs to be filled in education, or you're just going to offer a stale program.
Yeah.
Right. Your program's just going to get stale. And you're going to see that in your registration numbers for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I'm curious, being an academic, what are you seeing being done at the university level that associations could use or implement at their offerings as well.
Yeah, at the university, we've had to have honest conversations too. I mean, some of the things we do is very stale. Sometimes we get too set in our ways with course delivery. We've got to stay up to date on technology and new ways of delivering content and communicating with students. So, I would say we're equally in the same boat of trying to continue to evolve. Again, we've got some on our faculty that just does amazing things. But one thing I will say, Colleen, that I think at higher ed, at least in our department, that we're getting right is we're really looking at experiential learning. It can't be just in the classroom. We have got to have our students in the field doing some hands-on things. For instance, we require all of our freshmen in our program to work a national convention, a major sporting event, and a festival or fair. As a freshman.
That's so smart. I love that.
Go
then
out
you
and
learn
touch
early
it.
if you want to do this.
And we say a best practice in our school is that early and often we want you in the field. We want you actually practicing this. And sometimes we have students come to us and say, you know what, we didn't like that, working this event. And we say, that's okay. Then this probably isn't the field for you. And we can make a transition or help them make a good career shift early. So we like to start early and often in really that experiential type of education, those models. We're using that throughout our programs to just make sure that our students really are invested in this path. And I think that's one thing in higher ed, at least at our institution, that we're doing well, and we are doubling down on it as well.
So one of the things that I was wondering was, in terms of association, like the employees themselves, do you think it's important for them to take some professional development classes? And do you even think it's important for them to take some of the education that the association they work for is offering?
Of course. And it says a lot about an association if they're not investing in their staff as it relates to professional development.
Right.
That's one thing that I tell my students. I said, when you go in and negotiate it for your first job, maybe you don't get the high salary that you think you are going to get, but ask if they will invest in you to go to a national conference, if they'll invest in you to take your certification exam when you're ready for that next step in your career. How are they going to invest in your continued professional development? So unfortunately, I see way too often these associations who are touting education to their members, but yet don't reinvest in their own staff's professional development.
Yeah.
And that's really important. If you're on the meetings operations team, you should be going to your industry conference. If you're marketing communication, you should be going to the conference to talk to peers, because the peer learning sometimes is as important to what you're learning in the classroom.
That is so, so true. Yeah, I definitely agree.
100%.
Finding someone who's doing the same thing you are. And when you have questions, when you have needs, when you're unsure about something and you have someone to call that's in the same role as you are, that matters. That really matters. And I've always spent a lot of time with my peers, and it has paid off for me in, double, triple, 10 times by making that investment even in myself sometimes.
Yeah, I think in associations too, you can fall into that trap of I'm so busy, I don't have time. Like I just have to stay up. And I know the last few years I've been really active in ASAE, and the stuff I've learned and the people I've connected with, I am just constantly kicking myself for not doing it earlier. Because wow, would that have been helpful when I was in my association career? I mean, it's really important.
I would agree. And I wouldn't have even thought to equate it with your salary. But of course it is. It's a benefit. It's an investment in yourself. And I think about myself working in associations, and the same thing where you think you're too busy and you're literally just passing up an opportunity to better yourself.
No question. And like I said, for me, it's also refreshing just to be around people who we think alike, we operate the same way, we have some of the same challenges. And not only do we go to sessions together, but we go to dinner together, and we meet in the morning for coffee. And so some of those conversations have been so valuable for me. And again, it's made some of those connections that have led me either to a research project, a consulting agreement, led me in another direction to explore something different for my students, a contact for a student for a job or an internship. You never know where those are going to take you. And sometimes just those coffee lunch meetings, have really benefited me both personally and professionally at these events.
That's great. Going back to associations, what do you think is a common misconception or even error that you've seen associations make when it comes to running an education program? For me, again, I know I'm harping on this, but it's just stale content. I'm always, the first thing I do before I commit to registering is to go out and look at their education program. Now, I'm an education student, so let me just say that. But are they offering programming that solves problems that is, again, on my mind? If I look at a program and I have seen this offered last year or 2 years ago, or this looks very 1990s, in terms of the program and the formats as well. Like, can we not sit in a general session and then sit in an hour breakout and then go back to the lunch and then back to break? I mean, are we offering different formats? Are you looking at delivering content different ways, connecting people differently? So I'm going to spend some time with that ed program to make sure that I'm going to get something out of it. Again, whether that's knowledge, whether that's connectivity. But I think one thing that associations have got to reevaluate, again, is just that old, stale format and content. Convention looks the same way it's looked for the last 10 years. And we're not doing anything different. We're not willing. And some events I went to, and some of their sessions have really flopped. But you know what? I have continually written in the evaluations, congratulations on trying something. Maybe it didn't work, but it was new and it was different.
That's great. Yeah.
And so it didn't deliver, but I applaud you for giving it a shot. And a lot of associations are just really conservative, and they're not willing to go out there and try anything new. And that, for me as an attendee, sometimes can be really disappointing.
Yeah, I think associations are some of the biggest offenders of this is how we do things.
Yes. We've done it this way for 10 years. Well, maybe it's time that you look at things a little bit differently.
Yeah. So one thing we really wanted to get your thought on was, obviously a lot of associations use education to drive revenue. We recently spoke to an association leader that they made a complete change in how they offered education. They had pretty low uptake on their courses, some of which were required for the profession, but people could also take them elsewhere. They decided to do a slight dues increase overall, and then offer all professional development and required education courses for free, and had a massive increase in membership, tons of engagement. What's your thought on making education free?
It's something in higher ed we're looking at too. I mean, I don't know if you follow MIT and Harvard actually offer some courses online for free.
Yes.
So you can get in the course for free. The content is free. Now, if you want to get class credit for it, then you have to pay for the assessment. That's kind of the tie-in. But higher ed's looking at that as well. We're looking at different ways of offering even free content, either through LinkedIn Learning or through some other channels, maybe just to offer your gateway course or your intro course for free to get people interested and involved. So honestly, I think the strategy is brilliant. It's a little risky.
Yeah.
It feels a little can we pull this off?
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. Here we go. But if you're very thoughtful about it, you have the right marketing communications team out there and is really committed to this new way of membership, I think it can really work.
That's great.
Especially in the online world, maybe not so
Right.
much, I still value face-to-face. I do want to say that I still really like to learn face-to-face. We've been forced to go online during COVID. I think hybrid is probably here to stay. But if you can offer some of that online education for free, why not? It's not costing you a lot of money. So if you look at the expenses and the revenue, it's not costing you a lot of money.
That's great. Well, this has been such a great conversation. We like to end every podcast with a couple of fun questions.
Yeah.
So our audience can get to know you better. So, where did you grow up?
I went to high school in Anderson, Indiana. It was a very GM factory town. All four of my grandparents worked at the factory. And so I am a true Hoosier, come from a blue collar family that just, really valued education. Both my parents were educators, wanted to see us kind of break out of the factory kind of mentality, but grew up in the Midwest. I'm proud to be from the Midwest and have that Midwest mentality, no question.
That's great. If you won the lottery tomorrow, would you still work?
I would work, but only for things that I'm passionate about.
Yes.
I would say no thank you to anything I did not want to do, but the things that I still love, I do love to work. And I don't consider it work. I don't consider what I do, most days, not all days, work. But I would continue to work my passion. How's that?
Yeah. Yes, that's great. What is your favorite movie or TV show?
So I have to say, I cannot commit to series. I wish I could. I'm not one of those that can recommend any good Netflix series or Hulu or any of those. I just can't commit that. I don't know what it is, but my favorite movie is what is the Little Miss Sunshine? And,
I love that.
My gosh.
And
so great.
So funny.
A belly laugh movie. Like it's just one of those that's so funny and so lighthearted. And there's lots of just little nuances in it that just make me laugh. So anytime that I want to throw in a movie, it's always Little Miss Sunshine. And so it's still at the top of my recommendations list.
This is a great movie.
Nice.
Dogs or cats?
So I have a dog. We have a chocolate lab, Maddie. I would not have said in life I was a dog lover. My boys talked me into getting a dog. But now that we have her, I'm going to say I'm a dog lover and I'll never go back.
It happens.
I know it does happen. So it's happened to me. And yeah, I'm going to say I'm going to commit to the dog loving side of the equation.
That's great. And finally, what's something you miss from the pre-pandemic days?
Oh, the pre-pandemic days. It seems like so long ago, and it really was.
I know, right?
I've lost some years, I think, here in the middle. I miss just not having to be concerned about traveling and meeting in groups. And, we're getting into the winter. It's going to be flu season. Still, COVID's still lingering. It's always in my mind. So I think it's just my mindset. I miss that kind of free mindset. Like I'm not worried about anything. Now you kind of have to worry about things that, 5 years ago, I never was worried about or thinking about.
When you cross your mind, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for my kids too. And how do you keep people healthy? So I will say post-pandemic, I've spent a lot of time on my personal health, just making sure that I feel good, I'm working out, I'm thinking more about what I'm eating. How can I stay healthy, not only for myself, but for people around me? Caring about your community has been much more important for me post-pandemic. So I think, I miss the days that we didn't have to reevaluate a lot of little things that we do. And I think that's going to be around for a while. I think that'll be on my mind. Just how do we keep everyone in my household and in my community and my bigger community healthy?
Agreed.
Yeah, it just feels like there's a whole nother level of stress to every decision.
It is.
Yes.
that
It is.
continues to exist. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm leaving for Kenya this week, and I'm like, oh, am I making the right choice? I'm going into a pretty rural, setting in Kenya. I've been vaccinated. I worked this week just to maintain healthy, getting me in the right mindset. But I would never 5 years ago have questioned this. I would have said, hey, I'm going to Kenya. And now I'm thinking, I'm going to Kenya and I need to make sure I've done this and I've done this and I've been vaccinated the right way. And I have all the things I need for this journey that I wouldn't have questioned 5 years ago in a second.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. It'll be interesting to see if we ever go back. It's hard to say,
It is. I am happy that face-to-face is, at least people are willing. A lot of people are going back into some face-to-face engagement. I miss that. I really miss
do too.
The opportunity to be with people, during the pandemic and working out of my house. I have to tell you, it was hard for me. It was hard not being around others, not being with my students, not being in the classroom, not being, in a space together to really brainstorm and collaborate and do those things. So I am happy to be back. I missed that tremendously during those pandemic days.
Yeah, I agree on that wholeheartedly. It's nice to see more opportunities to get together for those people that are comfortable with it. So it's just good to see. But anyways, Amanda, thank you so much. This was an awesome conversation and some really great nuggets for our listeners. So we greatly appreciate you joining the A100 today.
Thank you for having me.
And that's a wrap on today's episode. Thanks for listening to the Association 100 podcast, brought to you by the A100 publishing team, powered by Onward and Upward Marketing and Communications. You can subscribe to the Association 100 podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and all of your favorite podcast listening apps so you'll never miss out. Or listen via our website at theassociation100.com. Follow us on Twitter at Association100. That's Association 100 for all the latest insights and trends impacting the world of associations. Thanks for tuning in.